So everybody, this is Shihan Duval Hamilton of
Yes.
Untitled Kyokushin. He's also the branch chief of World Kyokushin Budokai. First of all, sir, will you please tell us where you're from?
Good. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Originally born and raised in New York, so I'm a New York kid by birth. And I grew up in the, I can't say the hard streets of New York, but I came from a double parent home. You know, I had my mother and my father in my life, and they were very influential in my life. So they kind of kept me on the straight and narrow.
Yes.
Yeah, born and raised in New York City, grew up in the projects of New York City. So I've seen a lot of hardships, and I've seen a lot of, you know, violence and whatnot. And I think that was the one main reason that I've gotten involved in martial arts. So yeah, so born and raised in New York kid all the way.
Well, and how did you originally get involved in martial arts, and how did you end up in Kyokushin?
Okay, so yes, so I would say late 70s, coming up. I was a fan, of course, of that day of Bruce Lee, right? So wanted to learn martial arts because I was a quiet kid. I wore glasses. I had a big head, so people used to pick on me. Right. And so my mom, she signed me up for a kung fu class at the community center.
Okay.
And so I took a couple of classes. I was kind of liking it a little bit, but I kind of didn't have the sense of the Oriental, I guess, the Asian flavor to it. And so my mom signed me up for a Taekwondo class. And so when I went into the space, I was in awe because it's everything that I thought of or could think about being in a martial arts studio was there. So I spent my early years in Taekwondo. And one of my main instructors was Moon Sun Lee from New York, and then S. Henry Cho. I don't know if you remember S. Henry Cho, because he used to host the All-American tournament, which Chuck Norris, Bruce Lee, all of the big names competed in at Madison Square Garden. So at that point, as I continued on in my history, I stayed with Taekwondo for a minute. And then as I got older, I kind of, as a teenager or going into high school, I kind of fell off with martial arts for a minute. And then leaving high school, I was introduced by a brother who was part of the Nation of Islam. And he was trying to explain to me that he knows martial arts, and he showed me a few techniques. And I was like, wow, that's really great. Well, a couple of years down the road, I ended up meeting him at a dojo in downtown Brooklyn called When Worlds Collide. And so that was the student, a guy by the name of Anthony Muhammad, who was the student of Moses Powell, like a New York legend. And so I trained with them for a good while. And so they were on the ground floor. And then there was another karate school up on the third floor. And sometimes when I used to leave from training, I used to hear this ki, hey, hey, hey. And I was like, what in the world is that? So I happened to go up there and watch a class and watch how these guys were really passionate about what they were doing. But not only the passion, they were really hitting and kicking each other like with full power. And I was like, man, this is very interesting. I'm going to come back and watch another class. So I came back and watched another class, and same thing, very passionate, strong technique, powerful kicks, powerful punching, and they weren't holding back. And I was like, man, I need to be a part of this. But I didn't want anybody to know downstairs that I was peeking up what was going upstairs. So eventually, I just made that transition. I joined Shihan Kanamura at that time, downtown Brooklyn. And then I stayed with him for a little bit. And then one of his students, Shihan Henry O, was in Queens. Now, I lived in Queens. I worked in Brooklyn, so it was like I was training on my lunch hour, and then I was going home. But so I transitioned from Shihan Kanamura to Shihan Henryo, and that kind of changed my life because I think for me, by far, he's probably next to Shihan Kanamura. He's probably one of the greatest instructors in Kyokushin on the East Coast, man. He was really good. So that's how I got my start in Kyokushin.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a great experience. There was a lot of great fighters there. It was just jam packed. That area in Sunnyside, Queens, it was just jam packed, full of fighters. I mean, really, really great fighters. So yeah, that's how I got my start in Kyokushin.
Were you already a black belt in Taekwondo at that point?
So I was a brown belt in Taekwondo, and interesting enough, I had very good kicks, pretty decent kicks. So the kicking thing was not foreign for me, yes. But the punching thing was kind of like a little distant. Right. And then also in Taekwondo, there's a lot of touch and point sparring. Point sparring wasn't continuous fighting, so that was the little thing that was different for me also. But at that point, I tell you, it was a great transition for me because I knew that learning the Taekwondo was good, but the Kyokushin was almost like the icing on the cake for me.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
You had Kung Fu, to Taekwondo, I guess Sanukas Ryu, Kyokushin.
You know what? I say it was a journey because I was really trying to find where I fit in. For me, Taekwondo, it might have been for some, and it was great, great experience. The Kung Fu was great. But for me, the full contact knockdown was where I wanted to be. Definitely where I wanted to be.
Got you. So let me ask you this. So now you live in Dallas.
So now I live in Dallas. I moved to Dallas about 5 years ago. And just to mention, it was not my intentions to start a school here in Dallas.
So how did that happen?
Well, so moved here in Dallas, and so I wasn't really doing anything on the physical side. So I said, hey, I want to do something. So I was trying to find a knockdown karate dojo, right? and I asked, so I would visit like a kickboxing school. I visited like a Shotokan school, and I would ask, I would say, hey, is there a full contact karate knockdown Kyokushin? And they were like, Kyokushin? Oh, I've heard of Kyokushin. Yeah, but not in this area. And I was like, that's interesting. That's interesting. So I said, that could be an opportunity for me to kind of bring the Kyokushin style karate to the DFW area. So 2 years ago, I set on a new journey to start Dallas Kyokushin Karate.
Wow. And so tell us about, so you started in Dallas Kyokushin, and it's amazing that a big state like, well, a big city, Dallas, Fort Worth, they wouldn't already have a Kyokushin.
Exactly.
And I know like Taekwondo is really big in Texas.
Yes. Yeah. Taekwondo is very big. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is very big here. And Muay Thai is very big. Right. Yes. But the knockdown karate is almost non-existent. Now, I do want to say that there is a gentleman here that lives in Arlington, which is part of the DFW area. He has a dojo, and in his bio, he actually trained at the Hambu dojo during the time of Masoyama. But I think what happened is he kind of transitioned into a little bit more softer style for business purposes, I guess. So, but that's the only person that I've met really that had any real ties to Kyokushin. Wow.
And how has the journey been in Dallas with the development of your dojo there?
So the journey has been quite interesting because of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Everybody's into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think for one, karate has, or anything that resembles traditional karate has kind of taken a back seat, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is kind of like in the forefront. So it's been I've had a lot of people who are very much interested in Kyokushin, and then to the point where they actually sign up for classes, right?
Right.
But then when they actually get into the mix, it's not what they expected, all right? Because, Kyokushin karate is quite traditional in its sense, right? And then they have the fighting. I think a lot of times people focus a lot on the fighting and not on the other items like the kihon and the kata. So it's been a touch and go, but like any business, you have to advertise, right? I mean, you're in a big city, and we're like a dot on the map, and it's like advertising. So I constantly put the word out that we're out there, and we've been gaining some traction. But unfortunately, COVID came in and kind of, put a stop to a lot of things. But I've got a small following here that is very strong following. And then we're building. We're still in the building. We're still in the infancy stage.
Yes, sir. So now, like I said, you've been named the branch chief of your organization. Can you please tell us about the WKB and how that came about? How did you become involved with them?
Right. So the WKB, World Kyokushin Budokai. So prior to me aligning myself with the WKB, I had no affiliation with any organization. Prior to that, my only affiliation was to the IKO. And so I've spent a lot of my time with the IKO. And so the last time I was with them, I decided that I didn't want to be part of an organization, because at the time, I honestly have to say that I didn't see purpose in it. I didn't see any reason in it. You invite the big guy to your country, you spend a lot of money, people get all excited, he goes back home, and then at the end of the day,
you're out of a lot of money.
You're negative numbers. I mean, and then a lot of picture ops, right?
Yeah, some nice pics.
Yes, exactly. So I didn't really see any purpose in it. And so I kind of felt that the organization was overshadowing what the local dojo was doing at times. Yes. And then it became almost like, what group are you with? If you're not part of this IKO group, then you're not authentic. And I was like, wow, this is too much. And so I kind of disconnected myself from it and just started doing just me. All right. Yes. But as I've gotten older in my thinking, so maybe, connecting to a group could be a good thing, make it a plus, right? And then at the same time, I have to make what my local dojo, make it what I have to be, what it appeals to me, right? Like not just the organization, but it's Dallas Kyokushin Karate. So, so I reached out, and it was just really weird by accident. So there was someone who was selling printed Kyokushin stuff, T-shirts and stuff like that. So I connected with them, started purchasing items from them, and I kept seeing this name of Shihan Daniel Sanchez. I was like, man, who's this guy? I keep seeing this name that's centered around these T-shirts. Maybe he's the owner. Well, come to find out, his wife was the owner of the company. And then I did more research about him, and he actually competed in a 100-man Kamente not too long ago. And I was like, man, that's great. These guys are still doing 100-man Kamente. That's beautiful. Well, come to find out, he's a committee member of the WKB. And I was like, okay, let me look up this WKB. Let's see what they're all about. And so come to find out that they're a very, tight-knit, strong group. Most of their dojos are in Spain and in Europe. But they had one dojo represented here in the US. And I was like, well, I like the fact that the group is small, because in the IKOs, I mean, you can literally get lost. Like, you have no reach to the kancho or the kaicho of the group. And so I said, I like the fact that they're small. I like that they have these certain principles that they're following with tradition, and they're sticking with the budo code. And I love that. So let me just do some more research. So I started connecting to Shihan Sanchez, and it was like we kind of connected. And from there, I gained more interest in the WKB and decided that, hey, I want to be part of this group that seemed like they're progressing, but on this little tight-knit family. And I like that about the group. So recently, I was named a branch chief here in the US. So I'll be the second branch chief here in the US. And so my intent is to grow it as much as I can, to get that name out.
Well, congratulations on your new appointment. That is awesome. We're speaking with a branch chief. Now,
that's funny.
Now, a lot of people might not know this, and years ago, maybe it was 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 2008 when I first met you.
Right.
And would you please tell everybody about your radio show? I've been honored to be on your show twice.
Right. Yes.
And so would you please tell everybody about your radio show and what it was like doing a show at that time?
Yeah.
Compared to, everybody has a blog nowadays, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I kind of think of myself as like the grandfather of podcasts when it comes to martial arts, because back in 2008, I started a podcast called Martial Arts Weekly. Now, the story doesn't really start there. It started somewhere back in 2006, 2007, because I actually started like this, what back then they used to call it a online magazine called Osu Magazine.
Yes.
And so what I did was I gathered stories, I tried to do some interviews, and I compiled that into a online magazine, and then I pushed it out for sale. I did that simply because I wanted something for the knockdown, full contact karate community. I mean, Black Belt Magazine is great because it caters to a whole spectrum of martial arts, right? But I wanted something specifically for the knockdown, full contact karate community. And so I created this magazine called Osu Magazine. Well, from a person who has zero experience, it was a challenge because I didn't really know what I was doing. I was kind of like trying to figure my way around, and but with all of that, it was pretty successful. I mean, it got a lot of name recognition out there. Then I stumbled across this this website called Blog Talk Radio, and I was like, "What is this?" So I went into it, and it was like, "Host your own online radio program," and I was like, "That's it. I want that." So I signed up, and again, didn't know what I was doing, kind of figure my way out. And I began to create these podcasts, or back then it was called online radio. So I created these podcasts, and they were all basically, initially, it's centered around, again, the full contact karate, knockdown karate community. But then for me, I kind of felt that I was kind of putting myself in a box if I wanted this thing to go bigger. So I opened it up to other styles. So, man, it was a great start, and I think that if I had more knowledge, I think it would have gotten a lot bigger. Some of the names I've interviewed: Boss Rutan, I've interviewed him. Luke Hollander, big Kyokushin guy in Europe. A guy by the name, oh yes, we all know Cameron Quinn. I interviewed him. Okay. So I had a couple of big names on that show. I mean, like, again, it was a challenge for me because I didn't know what I was doing. It almost like to chase one guest, it took me a week to get one guest on a show. But it was a great thing. It was a great thing. And even to this day, I find it on somebody's website, webpage, Facebook page, a show that I've done back in 2008, 2009. So I might revisit that again since the popularity of podcasting is back.
I was going to ask you, would you consider starting that up again? And also now that you're a branch chief of an organization, and is there a possibility that Osu Magazine could come back? I mean, there are no magazines dedicated specifically to full contact karate.
Right. I would love to do that. I would like to partner up with someone who really understands that side of the business. Because I have the great ideas. I just need somebody who can help me implement those ideas. And so I would definitely revisit that. I've been talking with a friend of mine who was asking me or telling me, hey, maybe you should kind of like take this on the road now. Like cameras, your cell phone, everything is mobile. You can go to tournaments and bam. So definitely, I will definitely, am looking to revisit that area. Like I said, I would like to partner up with somebody who has knowledge of that. And so we can get that thing moving.
Let me ask you this. So for the people who are listening, is there a way that they could, how would you recommend if they want to go and see some of your past work, where could they go to look it up?
Yeah, most likely they could Google Martial Arts Weekly or Blog Talk Radio, and then go onto their search and look for Martial Arts Weekly. I was just on it not too long ago, and I still see all shows are listed. And I probably got almost close to 100,000 listens for each show. So awesome. Over the years, it has grown. Figure 2008, 2020, so it's grown a lot. People still listening. Listening. Yeah.
We can provide a link on the YouTube video and on Facebook to his.
Well, what we'll do is on this video, we're going to put a link.
Okay.
So people can go find that information.
Yeah. Just keep in mind that it was really backyard, not really professional. And so it was just the start. And like I said, I kind of feel that I'm like the grandfather of podcasting, because that's the thing that I was doing back in 2008. So, but now you see there's a lot of shows out there, which is great. I love it.
Yeah, I can't imagine how difficult it is and how much more expensive it was to get the equipment and all that stuff in 2008.
Right. You know what? The funny thing about it is there was not a lot of equipment. Everything was internet based. And Blog Talk Radio back then made it very easy for you. So I would say that they are the grandfathers of podcasting, the way we do it today. It's probably a lot more, and I'm sure, yes, it is a lot more easier. And then you can get a lot more equipment to enhance or make your show a lot more professional, instead of sounding like you're talking on the phone and, it sounded like you're in an echo chamber and talking on the phone.
Yeah.
So, and actually that's how I did my show. I was talking on the phone. There was no mics or anything involved. It was like I dial up a number, they dial up a number, and hey, we had a conversation that was recorded. So.
Well, let me ask you this. So what was the Kyokushin scene like in New York before you left? Okay.
So let's go back a couple of years. New York Kyokushin, I believe, and this is just me speaking, is probably the strongest Kyokushin in North America back at that time. All of the high-ranking premier Shians and instructors were based in New York. And that's just my opinion. Even I heard Cameron Quinn said that when Kyokushin came to the US and it landed in New York, it really didn't spread that much far out of New York, other than, of course, the West Coast and some pockets in Chicago and maybe in the Florida area. I'm not really sure. That probably came later years.
Right.
But the Fighting Black Kings, if you've seen that movie, that movie kind of set Kyokushin really on the map as far as New York is concerned, because there's a lot of scenes in New York. As a matter of fact, you can see students running downtown Brooklyn, and Dojo was just maybe a couple of blocks from that area. So, yeah, so the scene in Kyokushin, Kyokushin, I think, is like any other organization. When the father dies, the children begin to splinter off, right?
Right.
And so when I came into Kyokushin, it was still, the father had died, but it was still kind of still together. And then eventually it just splintered off and everybody just went their way. And, but fast forward to now, it seems like everybody's kind of trying to come back together. Not under one organization, but they are being more inviting of each other's tournaments, each other's seminars, each other's trainings. When back in that day, I would say like the early 90s, and I'm talking the very early 90s, there was definitely a division. Definitely, without a doubt, there's a division. It was like, if you're not part of this IKO, then you're not real. If you're not part of this IKO, we can't associate with you. But today, it's a lot different, a lot different.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you that too. I mean, you know, I've noticed over the years a lot of politics in martial arts, and I mean, in every martial art, not just knockdown styles, but you know, everybody is if you're of a different style, don't mingle. But you know, the funny thing is, back in the 70s, 80s, you'd go visit another martial arts school, regardless of style, you were welcome. Everybody was it was cool with everyone. And I even, in looking at some of the early knockdown competitions in the early, late 80s, early 90s, you'd have, you know, the North American champ, or the All-American in New York.
Right.
You'd have, I know there was a tournament in Hawaii, the U.S. Judokan Open, the Sabaki Challenge. And then when you look at some of those early tournaments, you'd see guys from World Oyama, Kyokushin, Enshin, the guys like Thomas Kuchereski, Norm Rivard from Canada, fighting in these different knockdown tournaments. And so you'd have these different styles or different, or these, like you say, these branches supporting the same events. And then that kind of went away. Then it was like, okay, the guys that did Enshin just did Enshin. The guys that just did, you know, this style, that kind of went away. And so are you saying now you're starting to maybe kind of see people reach out to each other and say, hey, let's support each other?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, without a doubt. Even before pre-pandemic, groups used to just get together and have training sessions from different groups, get together and do their thing. It's got, like I said, it's gotten a lot better. It's gotten a lot better. I don't know what happened between, let's say, the mid 90s till about the mid 2000s, that 10-year period. I really don't understand what happened, why the separation was so huge. But it's gotten a lot better. And probably even more so now, because we're in this pandemic. Just like guys like Shihan Tom Callahan, who opened up a Zoom training, not to just his group, but to everybody.
Right.
So, so yeah, it's gotten a lot better. I think too, also, when I'm thinking about it, is that back in the day, maybe there weren't a lot of knockdown tournaments. All right. You probably can count them on one or two hands, but now there are a lot more smaller tournaments, and I think people have the urge to compete. So they just go and compete, and then those barriers begin to break down, you know? So. Right.
And I know it used to be where, you know, you couldn't compete in some tournaments unless you were a member of that organization.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You could not, if you were part of a certain group, you could not be seen at another organization's tournament. If that was the case, you risk getting kicked out of the organization. So it's almost like Bloods and Crips, you know.
Hey, since you mentioned that, I'm not going to call any names, but
No.
We have a friend that came and worked out that we know from another organization.
Yes.
And this is several years ago. He came, worked out at our dojo, and at the end of the workout, you know, nowadays with social media, everybody wants to take a group picture. And the guy says, "Hey, I can't be in the picture." And we're like, "Why?" He is, "Because if my organization, if they find out I was in this picture, I'll get in trouble."
Oh yeah. That's how it was. It was gangster back then. Like, you could not be seen. No pictures, no photo ops, nothing like that. Because if that was the case, and if you had some type of loyalty, right, you did not take any pictures because you could get excommunicated out of the group.
Right.
But thankfully, that, like, again, I say it's a lot different today. Everybody is basically connected. You still, like today, I had a guy who came to Dallas. I know, who actually lived in Dallas. He claimed he trained in Kyokushin, but he didn't have a dojo home. And the first thing he asked me, what organization are you part of? And that, I was looked at him, I was like, damn, this guy, he just don't get it. It's beyond organizations, you know?
Right.
So
what organization, who you train with?
Yeah. Who what's your set?
Right. So let me ask you, what do you see would be key in moving full contact karate forward? You know, you already said that, you know, you're starting to see support amongst the different organizations. You know, when you look at like when you look at sport karate or point fighting, for example, they have a set of rules that say, hey, it's open to anybody. We don't care if you're Shotokan, Shito rule, everybody can participate. I mean, and I think that's been a strength with some of the sport karate or tournaments over the years, is that, you know, everybody can be on the same playing field, and despite being a different style, everybody can compete together. You know, what do you think would help move full contact karate forward in the United States?
Wow. That's a great question. I had a conversation with a friend of mine a couple of months ago about this, and I was like, man, if we had the same, almost the same media presence as BJJ or the Gracies, we probably would be up there as far as in the forefront of this martial arts world. But I think that's what's going on now. The movement of the barriers have been broken, and people are training together. And I think as long as we continue that trend and support each other too at the same time, you know, when you host a tournament, you need competitors, right?
Right.
So when you don't have those barriers, and you just go there for the pure love of competition, that's the kind of thing that can grow groups. And then two, I mean, let's think on a little bit higher note. Back in the day, instructors did not allow too many of the students to go out and start dojos too. You know, it was like, if you're here for life. You basically had to break away to start your own dojo. And so I'm not sure in Kyokushin we have arrived to that level yet where we like, hey, we're training this guy to be an instructor. And I'm not talking about like, you know, some fast track thing. I'm talking about legitimately training this guy. He made his black belt, Shodan, Nidan. Hey, why don't you go out and start your own dojo? And I think when we begin to grow like that, then people will see us a lot more. That's my goal. And that's always been my goal as an instructor, is like, I don't want to hold people back. I want people to be out there doing their thing, because they're going to be an extension of me. So train them. You see talent in them, send them out. Send them to a community center. Host 2 classes a week. I mean, it's not going to hurt. It's only going to help to
Right.
me, you know. And this is part of the things that I envision when we talk about Kyokushin and the growth of Kyokushin. You know, so.
Man,
Yeah.
do you have any help in Dallas Kyokushin or?
Right now, I have a student that is. We gave him the title of senpai. I do all the classes myself. We haven't arrived there yet because we're still new. We're still basically in the infancy stage. But that's the goal. That's the goal. Train them, show them, you know, train them the curriculum, and then at some point send them out to teach. You know. So
let me ask you this. So, you know, with that big, and I agree. I think that if people had the opportunity to see full contact karate, they would really enjoy it. I mean,
absolutely.
And I always tell people, the fight fans, they don't care what it is as long as it's a good fight.
Exactly.
And when people and people who've never seen knockdown, when they see and they hear that slapping and those thuds, and they see knuckle prints on people's chests, and they see guys going, you know, what I call phone booth fighting. When they see that, they say, "Oh my gosh, it's very exciting."
Right.
And with that being said, as you know, karate is going to showcase in the next Olympics, which has been postponed. It's supposed to be this year, but so we're going to see a version of karate or sport karate, the Shotokan style karate. And I do know at one time in Japan, some of the knockdown groups kind of got together, and they were trying to say, and you know, maybe they will try to get it included just from a demonstration standpoint.
Right.
They were trying to get it included as part of the Olympics, and if I'm not mistaken, Kyokushin has even created an opportunity for fighters who are knockdown fighters to kind of train with the I guess WKF style fighters so they can have an opportunity to compete in the Olympics.
Yes.
You know, my thought is, I mean, I think, you know, Kyokushin is probably a little bit too brutal to be, you know,
for Olympic viewers, yes.
Right, it would probably be
kind of be a pay-per-view event.
And as we've seen how they, you know, even when you look at like Taekwondo, which is a very, very popular martial art, and as a sport is really big, but it's changed, you know, to be more spectator friendly.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts of, or did you ever hear anything about that as far as the knockdown groups at one time? Was like, how can they get this to be showcased?
Right.
In the Olympic format.
I did hear of some things, and then back 2 years ago, I went to New York to watch a tournament, and I noticed that the rules changed a lot. And so I was asking someone there, I was like, what happened to the rules? Like, it's different. And they told me, oh, they changing the rules to kind of fit and suit an Olympic style rule set. And I was like, whoa, that's deep. My problem with Kyokushin in the Olympics is that it becomes, like you said, more of a spectator sport. And then the budo side gets ripped out of it, you know? So I don't think it's a good idea for Kyokushin to be there. That's almost the same as if, like we just talked about, if MMA became an Olympic sport, they would not even have it because it's just too brutal. I think karate, in its pure sense, is a brutal discipline.
Yes.
And though, yes, we have the sport side, and that's okay. I'm okay with the sport. That's just because everybody has that competition side, that competitive side, right? But I think it still needs to remain as this brutal discipline. at its core. So when people think of karate, they imagine the brutality of karate. I mean, if you can understand that. It's kind of weird because we have all of this respects to each other, and we and we bow.
Right.
But then we talk about breaking legs, breaking arms, breaking things, that type of thing. But I believe that's where karate should be, not on an Olympic level. Because I don't know, you're a judo guy, and so judo in the Olympics do you think that it was beneficial, or do you think that it was?
It's two ways to look at it. So the purists will say that when you make something commercial, you kind of take away, take something away from it. I mean, we look at commercial karate, for example.
Right.
But the only positive thing I think a sport, Olympics, or any sporting aspect provides, it just helps to kind of market or attract people. And hopefully, if people are attracted by, let's say they see Olympic style Taekwondo, if it brings people into the dojo, hopefully they will get not just what they see as the sporting aspect. I mean,
right.
In judo, you have what we call the competitor dojo, and then you have the traditional dojo.
Okay.
The competitor side, it's like I'm going to teach you just what you need to know for competition.
Okay.
But then you have from the martial arts side, you have a curriculum, you have a ranking system, you have something that, okay, I can give my students that they'll be doing if they're not competing or if they stop competing. Because,
right.
With sports or with competition, with a lot of sports, once they retire from competition, they're done.
That's it.
They don't train anymore. You see a lot of overweight ex-boxers, right? You say,
right.
Because they say because they don't, if they're not fighting anymore, then they don't even work out anymore.
Right, exactly.
Martial arts, we want everybody, regardless of whether you're a competitor or not. I want you to be able to continue training. We can, fortunately for us, I have students in their 60s.
Right. Okay.
In their 40s and up. So I mean, we got we still have the young competitors, but I want people to be able to train and do this, like you say, for life. And
exactly.
I think that's what makes martial arts martial arts. I mean, you have combat sports, then you have martial arts. So
right.
I do think the combat sports will help bring some people into the dojo, but then hopefully we can get those competitors to open their minds and still see something different and say, you know what, there's more to learn than just competition.
Exactly.
There's something that, hey, I can learn and I can train and keep doing this when I stop competing.
Right, exactly. I don't know what the rule set that's going to be for the Olympic style karate. I think you said it was a WK.
Yeah, the World Karate Federation. They have it looks more Shotokan based, so they will. Yeah. It'll be stop and go. So I guess they will award points.
Okay.
They will do. They will have a kata division. I think they will have the individual kata, but they also have that team kata where they do the kata as a team, and then they do it applied to their teammates.
Right.
It looks beautiful. I think the fans will be excited to see it, and it will be very artistic.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I would be a fan because that's the thing that's intriguing to me, right? So, but at the same time, I don't know if sometimes, a lot of times what you see on TV is what you have a tendency to believe, right? So if you see the flashy and the artistic side of it, a lot of people, especially who are BJJ, MMA, they will have a tendency to dismiss it, and say that it don't work. I mean, that's what they're doing now. Karate, that's for kids. Well, MMA is where it's at,
How about? I mean, I know not recently, but you've had guys like your GSP, you've had Machida, you got Uriah Hall. You got
Right.
Was it Stephen Wonderboy Thompson?
Yep, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson.
You know,
yep.
and then what's the guy? He's real fan from England. Michael Venom Page.
Right. Yes.
Right. So what do you think about those guys? I mean, you know, here are some guys that are showing techniques from what people would say traditional martial arts.
Right.
You know, bringing something into full context setting.
Yeah.
Out that's MMA.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on those?
I love the fact that they are competing on that level. And I love the fact even more that they're showing their skill set in a traditional karate sense on that level.
Right.
Like Machida.
Right.
Unbelievable. I mean, you could look at this guy and say, this guy Shotokan 110%.
Right, exactly.
But he's doing the work. He's putting them down. GSP, same thing. You know, he has that Kyokushin sense about him, and he's at the top of the, you know, he was at the top of the food chain.
Oh, and then we also got to look at you got what's the new star, Israel Adesanya.
Yes.
So,
is he traditional? Is he traditional?
Well, he did Taekwondo.
Okay.
And I think that's his first martial art. He did that as a kid, and you know, of course, he has a lengthy experience in kickboxing,
right,
and Thai boxing,
right.
And you know, just the techniques. He's kind of like Anderson Silva. I call him Anderson Silva 2.0.
Right.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
Very
absolutely
similar in the way they move, and you know,
right.
Anderson Silva came up doing, you know, Taekwondo, then he got into kickboxing and then MMA.
Yes.
But they bring a lot of techniques that it's very different from your typical fighter.
They really do, and I love to watch them fight because I can see, like, man, that looks like that came from a kata. That technique, like it came from a kata, and so it's wonderful to see them fighting on that high level. I wish that more would go that route, and that would just get rid of the rumor that, oh, karate, that's old, it doesn't work, and it's for kids.
Well, and we saw that when you look at how K1 came about, you know.
Absolutely.
K1,
absolutely.
You remember it was Ishii was doing karate tournaments, and then it used to be the gloves came on to break the tie. You know, they were like bare knuckle. And then if there was a draw, then they would put on the gloves, take off the tops, put on the gloves, and add the punching to the head. Then he started hosting these K1 K1 events, but you had a lot of fighters that were from the knockdown styles. You had Andy Hoog, Francisco Filo, Labe Feitosa, Sam Greco, Michael Thompson. You know, so I mean, I think those were good. I mean, I think, you know, we got, what is it, Aronson Teixeira?
Oh yeah, Teixeira from Brazil.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you had a lot of good karate fighters.
A lot of good karate fighters.
That I guess that crossed over into, and that, you know, they also went to Pride.
Yep. They also went over to Pride. Yep, that's true. And then so a lot of those guys that were from K1, the Kyokushin guys, a lot of them actually came from a dojo that's in Brazil. The same dojo. They all were dojo brothers. Feitosa, Teixeira, what's his other name? I forget his name.
Filo.
Yes, all of them came from the same dojo. They all came from. So I guess Isobe. I think his name was Shihan Isobe from South America. You know, he's probably like the let's see, the premier instructor, because he had all of these fighters just like flood K1, and then eventually they went to other venues. But I wish K1 would come back.
Right.
I wish K1 would come back.
So what happened to K1?
what happened to K1? I mean, I know that I think it's been bought and sold. I mean, I think it still exists, but of course, I don't think Ishii runs it anymore.
No, I don't think so.
But you know, I don't know, because you look at, I think K1 was magical. It just is a magic time when you had the K1 Grand Prix. It would be December 31st, New Year's Eve. Every year. And I think over time, you know, they tried to make it popular here. We had K1 North American Championships, and we never had an American, or you'd have Michael McDonald.
Yep, Michael McDonald. Yep.
He won the North American Championships. You had a few Americans and Canadians fight over in Japan, but nobody ever got past the first or second round. I mean, nobody. You know, and I think that's why it's never really took off in America. We got to be good at it. We got to be good at it, or have a song in order for it to be popular. Now, I'm sure, you know, if we had an American who was able to win K1, then it would be popular here in the States.
Exactly. That would draw the crowd, right?
Right.
But I actually I attended a K1 event in Vegas. This was probably mid 2000s, somewhere in there. And Pitosa actually won that event.
Right.
And it was a great event because I got to meet him, take pictures with him, and it was a really, really great event. But I don't know if that Grand Prix, I don't know if that style of fighting was, I don't know if it was, if the North Americans or Americans were ready for that, because in the Grand Prix, you had to fight multiple fights, right, to get to the top.
And now,
in the same night, right?
I don't think you can now, because now with a lot of these commissions, you can't fight more than one fight in one night.
Gotcha.
You know?
Gotcha.
So now when we see a lot of these tournaments in kickboxing, like Glory and MMA, they'll do like this event is like the winners of this event will go to the next show.
Gotcha.
So I don't think nowadays you don't have the multiple fights in one night.
Gotcha.
Anymore.
Wow, that's crazy. But K1 was definitely.
It was awesome.
It was definitely awesome. I loved it. I love the fact that K1 was. I just, like I said, I wish it would come back as it was, as we remember. Right?
Yes.
I was saying, one of my first exposure to like more popular martial arts was K1 had a video game for PlayStation.
They sure did.
Yeah. And so I thought it was like a really big thing. Now that I'm older, I'm shocked not to see it around.
Yeah.
But people still refer to it. People still say it's the K1 rule set.
Right. I mean, it's a rule set, you know. But I always tell people K1 in Japanese karate, we call shin karate, glove karate.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what it is. And it's based on a knockdown style format. You know, the rounds are shorter, and it's based on aggression. It's based on who inflicts the most damage.
Exactly.
Because it comes out of full contact karate.
Exactly. Yes. So now I'm starting to see bare knuckle fighting. And I don't know. I don't quite understand. Boxing? Guys are getting in the ring and they're bare knuckle fighting.
Well, and then see that I don't think is going to be popular here in the States, because it's too. They do them like at. I guess you got to do them like on the Indian reservation, because no state is going to.
Sanction.
The commission is going to sanction, right?
Gotcha.
And I think it's kind of I just don't see it really becoming a popular, it's like MMA or like kickboxing.
Right. Well, one of my things I was trying to do here in Dallas is that there are quite a few of MMA shows, and there's one big MMA show that happens not too far, like within the Dallas County area. I tried to get a sort of like a demo fight or two onto their show. And so the answer was back to me like, hey, the commission is not going to go for that.
But even if it was just a demonstration, if you.
Right. It was like, the commission is not going to go for that.
Because I think some states won't let you fight without first of all, you got to have the hand wraps.
Right, and that's what they were.
Running.
Yeah, that's what they were explaining to me, that the unwrapped hands would pose a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know years ago in Florida, they used to have, I think it was called the Extreme Fighting Championship, and they used the same format as the Shidokan Triathlon. But during the knockdown, during the karate rounds, they had to wear fingerless gloves.
Okay.
Because at the time, I don't think the state would allow them to fight with bare knuckle.
I got you.
So they'd have to put on the gloves, then put on the kickboxing gloves, then go back to the fingerless gloves, something like that.
Gotcha.
But like you said, some states, the commissions may not allow that. And maybe if you call a meeting, I know like in Georgia, I put on a few Shidokan events, and I had to go meet with one of the commission people and kind of just sit down and talk with them and kind of explain what I did and submit a video and show it. And maybe if you could meet and educate them and say, hey, let me do this as an exhibition,
right,
one time,
right,
maybe I'll let you do it.
Exactly. Maybe also the allowance of kicks to the head.
Yes.
Maybe, I don't know, without the padding, but they, on an amateur level, they pad up, I'm sure, right?
Well, I don't know. It's like in Texas. They might. I'm pretty sure in Texas, probably like it is here. If you took two experienced knockdown fighters and put them out there and did an exhibition, it would probably go well.
Okay, yeah.
And I think even for the amateurs, I think they have different levels of amateurs. So if they're, A level, B level, C level, the beginner levels, they have to wear shin guards, and they'll say after 5 fights, they can opt not to wear the shin guards.
Okay.
And that's how we do it here in Georgia. I think,
Okay.
so the amateurs, they have to have some experience before they can take off the shin guards or the headgear. So they're like advanced amateur level. Then
Right.
they can fight without the shin guards.
Okay. And I think that was another stoppage for me too, the headgear.
Right.
Headgear. They said unwrapped hands and headgear.
Right.
So yeah, so I get it. But yeah, K1 is definitely like
So exciting. Yes.
yeah, it's very exciting. But yes, thank you.
But it sounds like you guys as instructors and owners and even sort of like franchisees have to wear a lot of hats, because there's a scenario I'm hearing where you're saying that the best way to get people to know about bare knuckle fighting is for them to be in other organizations as well. So you have this thing where you have to have your fighters fight in things like the UFC or MMA.
Well, I find that, if there's, especially for full contact karate fighters, like here in the South, there's been very few, there's very few tournaments available. I think we have a couple in Alabama, World Oyama, World Budokai. They do annual events. So that's, we're talking about 2, I think actually Oyama does 2 a year. They do 1 in the fall, 1 in the spring. So let's say there's 3 tournaments per year. So for me, I've had to get guys to do kickboxing or other types of martial arts competitions just so they could get some experience. Because and I think what hurts us here in the States is that in the past there's been few opportunities, whereas in Europe, a guy can travel to Spain this weekend, do a knockdown tournament, go to France.
Yep.
2 weeks later, go. What I mean? There's more opportunities. So the level of karate, the karate fighters were higher.
Absolutely. I totally agree. When you go to more north, which is Canada, and then you go to Europe and Spain, those fighters, they fight on a very, very high level. And simply because they get that experience. They're traveling all over. And I'm talking about not just 1 or 2 tournaments per year. They're probably 5, 6, 7, 8 tournaments a year, just traveling all over, getting experience, gaining experience with other fighters. and then building themselves in, in these world tournaments. Here in the U.S., we're limited to, first of all, we're limited to full contact karate tournaments. Right. All right. There are, most of them are semi-contact, which means, hand wrap, headgear, whatever. But the full contact,
right? We call it
semi-knockdown.
We call it semi-knockdown because they were shin guards, gloves, and a headgear. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So now when you try to build yourself up as a full contact fighter in the U.S., there's not much out there as far as that level of fighting. So you can really count it on one hand, actually.
I was going to say, since you mentioned, because like I said, knockdowns, has always had a presence, like you say, in Northeast. And there used to be, it hasn't been in a while, but the first knockdown tournaments here in Atlanta, World Oyama used to do an event where they would bring teams from New York, Chicago, San Francisco, and it was like lightweight, middleweight, heavyweight team fighting, and you see some really good fights. And then that kind of went away a little bit, and they were still doing annual tournaments down here. But whenever the New York fighters came down, back in the mid 2000s, I mean, they were usually clean house. If they came down south, I remember there's a guy who was an offshoot of World Oyama. Was it called Kenrikai? Does that sound familiar?
Kenrikai, yes. Kenrikai.
They brought like a lightweight, middleweight, heavyweight. And these guys came down and just destroyed. They just wreaked havoc. But and I said, it's because these guys were actively, they compete on a regular basis.
Right. So if you're from the New York area, and I'm not talking about like necessarily New York City, but more or less upstate New York, then you have access to Canada.
Yeah.
And fight in those tournaments.
Kyokushin is really big in Canada.
Oh yeah, it's huge in Canada. So you have a lot of very, very good fighters in the far north or Canada. And those guys, remember, they travel overseas to France and Spain and Holland and all of that, and they get their experience over there. So I have yet to see, and I could be just talking out of ignorance, but I have yet to see like an American champion, recent champion in knockdown full contact karate. I'm talking about that name is out there. People recognize him even in the US and in Europe.
Right. It looks like like I watched the the last Kyokushin World Championship, and I know there were some Americans that went to go participate, but I mean, they don't make it past the
that's because that level of competition is really high over there. Right.
So we gotta start promoting some full contact bare knuckle and build American full contact karate, right?
That's right. I mean, I think that's what it takes. I think that, and I don't know what it's like to host a full contact karate tournament on that level, but I imagine it's a lot of work and then red tape that you have to filter through and to get those shows on. But that's part of what's needed too. It's the whole.
Maybe I can do that. For me, I've tried to put on some tournaments here in Atlanta in the past, but the challenge was during the time, especially during the early to mid 2000s.
Yes.
I would never, I would reach out to other dojos and get very little, response as far as, okay, who's going to come?
Right.
And then it just got to where I was like, you know what? I just kind of let it go.
Right.
Maybe like I said, it might be a good time to try to reestablish some relationships with, and I've met some guys who are, there's some guys in North Carolina. There's yourself. There are some people that I know, and I just have to revisit that idea of putting on and try to get some good karate tournaments.
Yeah, I think that at this period of time right now, that this might be one of the best times for karate right now. And I think that if you're able to weather out the storm, and I'm talking about the pandemic storm, when this thing gets all finished up, if you're still out there pushing, I think it's going to be a good time for folks who are running dojos to be successful at the end of the end of it all, you know?
Yes.
But as far as you hosting the tournament, I think this will be a good time also, because right now people are starving, you know?
Right.
Like, people are starving for tournaments. And if there's enough tournaments out there, and, you know, it allows the Americans to travel a little bit, you know? But you know what, then again, you know, we're not like the Canadians or the Europeans. It's like, we'll go to a tournament on Saturday, but we got to be back to work Monday to go to work.
Right.
You know, we're not going to spend $2,000-$3,000 for airfare, tickets, hotels, and stuff like that, and go up there for a few days and come back. No, we have to work. You know, that's our mindset for some of us.
Right. Well, let me ask you this. So how are things going for Dallas Kyokushin during the pandemic? What are you doing to keep?
Well, so what we're doing, so what we're doing is I do daily classes, and I run classes from Monday through Saturday via Zoom. Okay. And so Zoom classes are good. Initially, I was kind of fogged about it. I was like, but they're good. I mean, like, we had a discussion, you know, now we get to work on a lot of Kiyonwaza. During the Zoom class.
Everybody's gonna have perfect technique now.
Everybody's gonna have perfect technique at the end of this thing, you know? So that's where we're at. We're working, we're training every day, you know, an hour a day. And then I host a separate children's class that I just started 2 weeks ago. And the interesting thing about that is I have a student who I train, 7 years old, who I train from Canada. He logs on twice a week, and he trains with me for 40 minutes from Canada. So I could see this thing growing big for a lot of instructors who are using the online platform to have students not only in your hometown, but to have students 2,000 miles away, you know?
Right. So we'll keep, you know, like, I guess you'll keep, even once we get past this pandemic, you have access or a way of reaching, you know, students everywhere.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely the plan. The plan is when we go back into the dojo, we're going to set up our iPad and run the classes along with the live classes. So I think it's going to give the instructor, like I said, a much bigger platform, you know, to teach, you know.
And is that more of a challenge for you because you have to come up with ways to impact people from a distance?
I know.
Does it make you? Does it make you more creative?
It does make you more creative. It's like every day I try to think of ways that we could run our class in this small space. Like, how do we do kata? So, for example, so how we perform our kata? Yes, we perform it in a small space, but now make your stands a little bit shorter. Make your stands a little bit shorter. Make it work for you. Or perform your kata in one space, in just one small circle. All right? So, yeah, it kind of gets me thinking like, man, how do I teach this kata, all right, in this little confined space, or from here, because, you know, our job, right, is to go up and fix the hands and, you know, move the legs, and, you know, so now it's me, I'm looking at a monitor and say, hey, move your right leg over into the
right. Well, it helps us improve.
Exactly. It does. It kind of fine tunes our teaching skills, right? Yeah. So, but it's very interesting, and I think it's just going to be another level for instructors to expand their brand, basically. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, let me ask you. Let me ask you just a couple more questions. Where do you see? You say you're with WKB, and where do you see your organization, how do you want to grow your organization here in the States? Let me ask this, there's one other instructor, you said there's another branch here?
There's another branch chief.
Where are they located?
He's in Florida. I haven't really reached out to him as of yet because all of this is relatively new. But there's another branch chief, and he's the country representative. So that's the other hat that he wears in Florida. But how I really want to begin to promote WKB in the U.S. We're small here, right?
Yes.
I'm not looking for this huge following for WKB, but I do want to promote the organization in the U.S. How I go about it, the plans are still in the makings, it's still in the works, but we definitely want to promote them here in the U.S. Yes, definitely, for sure.
All right. Well, would you please tell everybody how to find out more about Dallas Kyokushin, your website,
yes,
your Instagram, Facebook? Would you please let the audience know how to?
Yes, so all social medias, you could find me at Dallas Kyokushin. That's including Facebook and Instagram. And then we have our website, which is DallasKyokushin.com or TexasKyokushin.com. Either way, it'll lead you right to our website. If you want to reach out to me and ask me questions or bash me for anything that I said today, you can reach me at Shihan at DallasKyokushin.com.
All right, and we'll be sure, like I said, to put a hyperlink and all that.
Right, we'll put links to your sports, your show, and your Osu Magazine.
Yes, yes. I mean, I don't know where you'd be able to find an issue, but we'll definitely put links to that.
Oh, it's out there. We're able to find something.
Yeah.
We'll
find it.
Good.
You have any more questions, Pat?
I have some. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I'm not like a teacher or anything, right? So I'm a purple belt, and someday I'd aspire to be a teacher like you all.
Of course.
The thing that's interesting in this conversation is it sounds like there are multiple issues with the business plan of a martial arts school that you have to overcome as a teacher, that you're not really getting help from an organization. Right?
Yes.
Like I get concerned because I hear that there's an issue with marketing full contact karate, right? That's an issue outside of your school. And and also like when you're saying you have to promote an event, it's almost like if it was a military organization, you would have a battalion commander or someone who's in charge of everyone, who's the organizational chief, whose main goal would be to market the sport. And then you would have to have a lieutenant under them that was just a promoter. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
And then each captain would have their own schools. Right. But you're in a scenario where each one of you as teachers
we have to be everything.
Has to do everything at every time.
Right.
And clean the toilets.
And clean the toilets, right?
So like even in this scenario, I think about you opening your school and it growing, how much money it would be to advertise an event on Facebook, like do the AdWords and do like the Google AdWords and to create media for it. And at the same time, have to do the media for your school.
Exactly. So I used to own a school in New York for about 5 years, brick and mortar. And that was my daily task. Figure out if I'm signing up students per month, advertising, all the financials, paying the rent, paying the lights, paying the phone, everything. And those are the hats that you wear. I mean, especially if you are a small dojo, you have to do everything. Now, the large commercial dojos, a lot of times they have back offices, right, that help them with advertising and all this good stuff. So that's why the influx for their student base, it's continuous, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're a small dojo owner, there's a lot of challenges. And then for me in New York, when I owned my school, I worked a full-time job. Mm-hmm. And then at that time, so my day, Monday through Saturday, was work my full-time job, run to the school to pick up my son, take him to the dojo, give him something to eat, do a little homework, and then begin to teach my 3 classes. Mm-hmm. And that was a Monday through Saturday event. So yeah, it's challenging. It's challenging, and you gotta love what you're doing to spend that many hours in a day for 3 classes, basically.
Just this conversation, you have mentioned a magazine, a radio show, and organizing events. That's very drastic skill sets. Like
yes, you're Superman.
Yeah,
no,
magazine, the graphic design looked nice. You know
the magazine.
And for 2004, I thought it was okay. It wasn't the best, but
it looks good for now. There's one we were looking at that had Shigeru catching the sword.
Yeah.
And I was telling Pat where that came from. What was that?
So along with that, and I'm not to toot my own horn, along with that allowed me to go to like professional venues as media staff. So you kind of gain the credentials of the media staff to go into like professional venues to just write a little blurb or something on your website or your something of that matter. So it kind of opened up a few doors for me. And I think if I would have stayed the course a little bit longer and then maybe had some help on the side, I'm sure that it would have gotten bigger than what it was. Like I said, I am going to revisit that, and but I just need to have some people who have experience in that to kind of guide me. But yeah, it's all for love. It's all for love. Let me tell you, I didn't get rich at one time doing this. It's pure love. It's pure love.
That's awesome.
Yes. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Shihan.
Thank you. But this is what you're doing. I love this, and because it's needed. I mean, people really need to know. Like I mentioned to you the other day, Shihan, that we know what the big guys are doing because we see them in the media all the time, right?
Yes.
But what are the local guys, the American guys, or the local dojo owner that's still centered around, let's say, knockdown or Kyokushin or any full contact sport? What are they doing, and what are some of their ideas that they're doing? And most of the time, when you own a dojo like I did in New York, I set my dojo specifically in a low income area. I didn't go to the money areas because my mindset was I wanted to give this to people who might not be able to afford $200 a month to go to, let's say, a Tiger Schulman in New York, right? Who's charging a lot of money. They're great at what they do, but they charge a lot of money. Why not give them something other than basketball, baseball, and give them something different and put it in the community? And that's how I always felt that way. I kind of still feel that way here in Dallas. When we grow, that's my goal, is to kind of filter it into the lower income neighborhoods, because there's a lot of talent out there, untapped talent. So, yeah.
All right. But let me ask you this: how far are you from Austin?
I am 4 hours from Austin.
All right. I have a friend who's moving there, and he has a nonprofit that we've done work for here in Atlanta, and it involves getting martial arts to young people.
Oh, wow.
And I want to put you in contact with him since he's moving to Texas soon, and definitely somebody for you to talk to.
Please do, yes.
I will.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you so much for your time, my friend.
No, thank you.
And we're going to have you back. We're going to, like I said, we're going to get we got to get through this pandemic. We're going to have you back, and we're going to see what we all can do together to help promote and further karate.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. You guys are doing a great thing.
Thank you, sir.
Keep with it, and I'm praying for you guys.
Thank you, sir.
It's tough out there.
All right, sir. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, sir.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
You're good. Make sure I read this correctly and don't cause any mistakes.
Make sure you what now?
Read the prompts correctly here.
So don't delete it.
Yeah.
Let me use the bathroom real quick. Sure.